There you have it, CJ Stroud, AFC Offensive Player of the Week, 85.2% completion percentage, 244 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I would add 143.9 passer rating if anybody still pays attention to passer rating. CJ Stroud, obviously, very good week for him, very good second half against the Titans, and for the offense in total, a big turnaround from the first 3 weeks. But as we know, it's a big difference between the opponents in the first 3 weeks, the opponents in the second 2 weeks, or the fourth and fifth weeks, and we'll find out a lot after this bye week because they face a gauntlet of pretty damn competitive football teams. We had Nick Caserio on Payne Pendergast this morning, and he made one comment. Wait, one comment about Jalen Knoll that we'll play here in a second. He also talked about the pass protection, and I've got some thoughts on that. I think a little bit more of a nuanced discussion of pass protection and where it is. And then also Joe Mixon, Cecil Shorts destroying me for my Joe Mixon opinion, and at least one other thing that we have to talk about. I've got it all lined up. But here's Nick this morning. I don't have the video, so I put some the Jalen Knoll highlights over this from his Ray Lewis dance, his celebration after the touchdown. This was Nick Caserio and what he was saying in kind of a fun environment where everybody was laughing.
We want the players to be excited when they score. I would say discretion sometimes is the better part of valor. I mean, I love Jay Knoll, but I mean that was an asinine move. So hopefully he can come up with a different dance next time.
Asinine. Which Sean was kind of surprised because Nick shares Sean's love of professional wrestling, and Sean thought he would be all for it. As you guys know, I kind of look at that kind of like okay, rookie. I don't know, like taking on Ray Lewis is necessarily the best thing to do there. I think that asinine's a rough word. I think that asinine might not have been necessarily the word that Nick wanted to use because I don't think he was being extremely harsh. In print, I've seen on social media, it doesn't look so hot. A lot of people citing the actual definition of asinine, extremely stupid or foolish. The synonyms, stupid, foolish, pointless, brainless, mindless. How do you pronounce it? Let's see, just to be sure.
Asinine.
Can you guys hear that?
Asinine.
It's asinine.
Asinine.
Asinine. I'm not making as much of this as social media was. I don't think Caserio was like making a big federal case out of this or anything. This was a half hour, 40 minutes into the interview. I thought the more interesting part of today's interview with Nick Caserio was I asked him about pass protection, and I was trying to be clear that when I say pass protection, I'm not speaking specifically about the offensive line. I'm talking about the whole operation. I do think that sometimes when Nick or coaches hear pass protection from somebody who's interviewing them, they assume that the person is talking about the offensive line. So, Nick basically said, hey, the pass protection's been better, I think, than people think. I do personally think that it is definitely improved, but I think there's more that goes into it, and it's not just the offensive line. But here's Caserio on pass protection. I added some of the sacks that CJ has taken this year because I think it illustrates the multiple different reasons a quarterback can get sacked. I did time up the Rams sack that he talks about to the video, so pay attention, damn it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's any one thing in particular. And honestly, the pass protection on the whole has been pretty good. I mean, even when you look at some of the pressures or sacks, it's a situation where if the defense brings more than you can block, which is going to happen there against the Rams, essentially we got pressured. Well, weak safety was unaccounted for, but if we would have maybe redistributed the protection a little bit better, then we'd be able to pick it up, and then we would have had a play. I think we had Hig, basically on a touchdown. So, I mean, those are things that are fixable and those are correctable. So, overall, pass protection is a combination of things: understanding protection, understanding where the issues are, where the blocker is being distributed, and then regardless of the call, the passing game is always about playing on time. So you look around the league, I don't think there's any plays that are designed for, you hold the ball because that's the goal. I think playing offense in the NFL, when you look at good offenses, you have 2.5 seconds on basically every play. So is the ball coming out in less than 2.5 seconds? Are you going to the first read? Are you working through your progression? Are there going to be certain plays when you maybe have to hold the ball for a little bit longer, potentially, but by the same token, you're just trying to make sure that you mitigate the risk and mitigate the problems and account for what the issues are on the other side of the ball. And there are times when the defense is going to do something where they have a better call that matches up against your protection. That's NFL football.
I think right there you can see there are times where CJ didn't set the right protection. There were times where Ariante Ursary or Laken Tomlins just got flat out beat. There's times where perhaps CJ's holding onto the ball too long, and there are a couple that I could have put in there that maybe would have illustrated that better. So again, I think a lot of people have seen or listened to that clip, and they think that he's criticizing CJ specifically on that. I don't think he is. If we just go back through those and look at them, let me see if I can get it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's any.
Okay, Nick, we've heard you already. I mean, immediately the Rams game, you get. I mean. Ursary just got this. That was a welcome to the NFL moment for Ursary. You get another play where CJ could have stepped up. The pass protection wasn't awful. You put that one on CJ perhaps without looking at it was what he's going on downfield. If you'd slid the protection to the left here and accounted for those guys, then you maybe would have had Jalen Noel wide open down there at the bottom. Let's see. A couple of these were quick ones, if I remember properly. Oh, yeah. Okay, this one. Now, this is an interesting one, and I know we've talked about this a million times, but CJ checked the protection at the line of scrimmage. You can see him making that check there. And this is one where the play clock was winding down, and ultimately some of the offensive linemen got the check, other ones didn't, because it's as basic as that. You've got two guys going one way, three guys going the other, and either two or three of the guys didn't get the call. That ultimately I would put on CJ just because it's his responsibility to be sure that the call is communicated. But I mean the actual mechanics of it. Did Kaylee get the call in on time? I'll put Kaylee in on these two. Then there's other ones where guys are just getting physically beat, and that sack was in 2.2 seconds. Nick had cited getting the ball out in 2.5 seconds. This one was in 2.1 or 2.2 seconds. Sometimes guys were just getting physically beat. One thing that's changed is I think Ursary, at least in these last couple games, this last game especially, I think Ursary was pretty damn solid in pass protection. He had some work to do on some of the run plays. Swapping out Juice Scruggs for Laken Tomlinson. CJ getting more comfortable in the offense is a big deal. And one thing that I talked to Cecil Shorts about today that I thought was really interesting, Nick in his press conference had said that this is a player-friendly system. And Nick was kind of giving a good, honest discussion about how this scheme is similar in some ways to New England and what have you. And it is. I think Nick, again, when he hears that, he's arguing against people saying that it's just a copy and paste scheme, but there's definitely a lot of similarities. Cecil Shorts, who I do the Believe in Texans podcast with, played in 2015 when Bill O'Brien was adopting a lot of the things they did in New England. So I played him that clip of Caserio saying that it was a player-friendly scheme. This is what Cecil had to say about that.
Definitely player-friendly. It's just hard to learn, right?
Yeah.
It's not that the concepts are hard.
Let me get it right to the beginning there. There we go.
It's definitely player-friendly. It's just hard to learn. Right.
Yeah.
It's not that the concepts are hard. It's not that the routes are hard. It's just a lot of information at once. And if you're new to the offense, it's like, okay, how do I learn this? So you really got to take time to study it. Right. But he's right. There's always answers to everything. Like literally, I remember being in the slot, playing in the slot in this particular offense. And I'm looking at 2 or 3 different things. If they blitz off the edge, I do this. If they're playing zone, I do this. If it's cover 2, I know I got to do this. It's always an answer to everything that the defense does. It's just a matter of can the quarterback, the offensive line, and the receivers, running backs included, can they be on the same page? That's the hard part about the offense. But once you get it and it's rolling, it's a beautiful thing. And it's definitely player friendly, but it's a lot of reps that's needed. And that's why I'm trying to be patient when it comes to CJ and the O-line and everybody. Because once they get going, it's gonna be a fun thing to watch.
Yeah, and I'll link that in the comments below when we're done with this here. I think that's hard to learn, but player friendly once you learn it. I tested this analogy out on CJ. Like when you're learning Excel or Google Sheets, it's hard. You got to learn a few things about how to make all the formulas work and everything. But once you start using it, it's man. Oh, I can't believe I ever tried to do anything financial or any kind of numerical planning without spreadsheets before. And that's what guys that are in systems like this, because it's not just New England that does it, but they've done it the best, that it's just a matter of getting those reps and getting to the point where CJ's super comfortable with it, as well as all the receivers and the offensive line. But when you think about the play clock winding down from 20 seconds, if every one of those little steps in the process takes a second longer than when you fully understood it, from Kaylee getting the call in, to CJ checking the protection, to CJ potentially tweaking the routes, to then CJ reaffirming and over communicating the protection, all of that, it adds up really quickly to where, okay, 6 or 7 seconds have wound down that by the end of the season hopefully isn't there. I thought that Houston Stressens summed up, I think, pretty much my feelings on all of this, because some people thought that Nick was criticizing CJ specifically with that soundbite, and we're saying, okay, well, he's saying that CJ needs to get rid of the ball more quickly. Houston said, really feel like he's been over-criticized on this topic. He's averaging 2.71 seconds time to throw, tied for 10th fewest among 32 quarterbacks. He definitely wasn't at his best in weeks 0 through 3, but too many people are freeze-framing clips saying he should have thrown it away here, thrown it away there. Sure, there are a few plays he could have gotten rid of it sooner, but not many, in my opinion. And Texans commenter is a good follow, at Texans commenter on X, FKA Twitter. I agree with that. I think that weeks 0 through 3, 1 through 3, there was a lot going on everywhere all at once. And it was some issues with individuals on the offensive line. You had Ariante Ursary playing right tackle. Ed Ingram wasn't in there. There was a lot going on. Weeks 2 and 3, likewise, Ursary struggling with some dominant pass rushers. These last couple of weeks, I think you've seen them get on track pre-snap, but we still had some issues with some of the setting of protections, some of the backs in protection, all of that. It's a work in progress. It's just when you're 2 and 3 instead of 0 and 3, I'm feeling a lot more patient about it. I'm personally glad that the bye week is right now, and I think I'm in opposition to the majority of people there. Yes, cool. Taking the momentum from a couple of straight wins would have been nice. You're going to go face a Seahawks defense that's better than what the numbers show right now. They've had some injuries on their defensive line that I think a couple weeks from now they might be a really good defense. I would rather give Kaylee those first 5 games to look at, figure out what's been going right, what are the communication issues right now, and how do we coach that better? How do we do it better in practice? How do we get ready for an environment in Seattle, it is brutally loud in Seattle. I don't care what the decibels are or anything. There's something about being on that field in Seattle, the acoustics of that stadium, where it just makes it impossible to communicate sometimes. Cecil Shorts today was telling a story about when he was there, and they were in the huddle, and they couldn't talk to each other in the huddle. It was that loud. So everything that they need to do in terms of communication really needs to get ramped up by a week and a half from now. This is Caserio on Mixon being away from the facility. Sean Pendergast asked him basically, hey, we see Tank Dell, he's around all the time. How do you decide, how much a player should be at the facility or not? Here's Caserio on that.
It really is kind of case by case. Mm-hmm. What's the best for the individual? What's best for the team? Sometimes there's some advantages from a player being away and being maybe in an environment that he feels comfortable with. Other times, maybe it's better for that player feels like it's best for him to be around the team. I would say, in Joe's case, it's kind of like been some combination of both. So there's no perfect formula. In the end, we're all about what we think is best for the player and what they're comfortable with. So, I'd say every situation is going to be a little bit different relative to resources, relative to the environment that they feel comfortable with. And I think part of our responsibility and job is to be respectful and cognizant of that. You never want to try to force feed anything. So each situation is going to be a little bit different. So I'd say that's kind of how we handle those situations.
One of you yesterday had asked if I'd ever been in a similar situation or seen something like that. And I remembered and told the story on a surface level, but afterwards I was thinking about it. And when it comes to protecting the player and their privacy or however they want it handled, I told the story about the time I had complications from a knee surgery. Had the surgery in October. I tore my ACL in September, so had the surgery in October, and everybody would have assumed, oh, okay, cool, he'll be fine by September. Ended up having a whole bunch of issues with it, and there was a point where we couldn't figure out what was wrong with my knee. And it was it was emotionally probably the toughest thing I've ever gone through in sports, just because I had no idea. I thought I was done playing football. They couldn't figure out it was my knee. I didn't know if I was going to be able to. I didn't know if I was going to be able to keep my leg. Like it was rough, and that was never. The media never got a hold of that until after we had figured out what the problem was. But if I'd had to stand up at a podium or talk to a reporter or something, or had information leak out about that while it was going on, it would have been tough. I mean, I was having the emotional, like full on breakdowns and everything. So I have no idea with Joe Mixon. As many of you know, I'm trying to look for any little sign of hope. Caserio yesterday saying that he's making progress, and I'm saying, hey, all right, cool. Could be like Isaac Paredes. Maybe he just could have had something that he could have had of a surgery, and he chose to roll the dice and see if he could play this year. Cecil called me on my BS on that, on my perhaps uncalled for optimism.
Yeah, I think probably over the next few weeks we'll probably have a better idea. He's making progress, so I wouldn't put a particular timetable on it. So I think over the next 3-4 weeks, probably get a little more information here, kind of see how he's progressing. But taking one day at a time. But I think once we kind of get to that period, probably have a better sense of which way it's going to go, for the duration of the year.
Yeah. So I actually got excited about that because in my mind I'd written Joe Mixon off completely. I see by the look on your face that you're not necessarily excited about that.
Seth, he didn't say anything.
Oh,
he said
come on,
same
Cecil.
stuff he's been saying.
But
we'll follow up in a couple weeks and we'll get more information. It's a day-by-day thing. And something is up.
Son of a bitch.
Something is up. Something is wrong with Joe Mixon. I don't know what it is, but something's up.
He's made progress, Cecil. I
don't believe it.
Yeah, Cecil hit me with the old
asinine.
Yeah, all right, I'll take it. Whatever. I've been brought back down to earth. Sean Pendergast is usually the one who's naive and optimistic about things, and I call him on that and call him a sucker and everything. You could see in those highlights, man, Joe Mixon just brings something different. I'm happy with the way Chubb is progressing. I'm excited about Woody Marks. Joe Mixon, if you get the O-line right and continuing to improve, like he does some pretty damn impressive things. I showed you guys this graphic yesterday about it's running back rush yards before contact per carry on the x-axis, and then on the y-axis, it's pressure rate allowed. And I have a little bit of an issue with the way they labeled these quadrants, because you'll see the Texans are there in the lower right quadrant, which on this graph is the best O-lines. I think it's a little bit misleading because I think part of the pressure rate allowed is actually, as per our previous discussion, some of that is that CJ's been getting rid of the ball real quickly. And that's the entire process. Christian Kirk coming back into the fold, I think, has helped too, giving CJ more options early in the down. And as that continues to improve, that's part of the reason that he hasn't been pressured as much. Rejuggling the offensive line has certainly helped, and I think those guys are doing better than maybe the perception is. But then with the running back rush yards before contact per carry, I think that they're doing some good things in the run game, run blocking, but a lot of that is just simply the types of plays that Kaylee is calling. A lot of the duos that they're running, a lot of the man and gap schemes, they don't present as many opportunities for penetration by the defensive line as Bobby Slowick's scheme did, where they're running more outside zone. And it's not like Kaylee never runs any zone blocking schemes or anything. He's just a lot more heavily man and gap scheme. So there is progress, but I think it's also CJ and Nick Caserio doing a better job of kind of preventing the opportunity to be issues, if that's not overly complicated. But I feel good about it. Obviously, congratulations to CJ for getting the Offensive Player of the Week. Awards are always good. D'Amico talked about that earlier on. Let's see. Mixon's being cloned. Same place they made Trevor Joey Lawrence. Let's see. Joe Mixon sitting on a beach in Tahiti drinking Mai Tais. I don't know, man. I don't know. Let's see. We saw immediately darts thrown into the ground when screening to Marks. That helps his average. Happy to see that the rushed play from Stroud has become a polished passer. I don't know if that's if rushed was the right word that you were looking for. No, I think he's in his completion percentage over the last couple of weeks, his ability to get rid of the ball. Oh, you're thinking of when he threw it in the dirt to Woody Marks. I remember the play you're talking about. Yeah, and it's to be expected. If the scheduling gods had been kinder to the Texans this year, and the Texans had started off with the Titans and started off with a banged up and beleaguered Ravens team, it would have put a different flavor on it. I don't think that they would have. I don't think the Texans would have done what they did offensively if they had to do it in week 1 and week 2 versus weaker opponents. But it would have looked better than what it did versus actual bona fide opponents. When Ariante Ursary faces some good pass rushers again, I think that's going to be one of the real tests. Is can you trust him to hold up every now and then without a chip or without sliding to him to help him out? The thing about him that's interesting is, man, I see all of it and I see the potential. He's got such long arms and he uses them well. He's not as strong on the field right now as I know he is from having watched him play in college and just knowing what his weight room strength is and all of that. He needs to be a little bit more violent with his hands, and that comes with time and with confidence. So it's going to be fun to watch him progress over the next, over the rest of the entire season. Hopefully, like really rapidly over the next 4 weeks. Please like, subscribe, check out the Believe in Texans podcast. I will link that in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.